Greetings to all C3RF members and friends across Canada and indeed around the world, and a special welcome to the folks at Veterans for Freedom on their dedicated streaming channels as they view this video summary of the C3RF update for 1 November 2024. The title of this update is The Kettle-Pot Divide, and it kicks off by noting the popular idiom, the pot calling the kettle black, speaks to the hypocrisy associated with those who would criticize another for shortcomings that they themselves suffer from. The expression has been with us for some time now, with some seeing its origin in a poem by John Haywood in 1546, while others cite the English translation of Cervantes' Don Quixote from 1620. Fact is, however, hypocrisy has been with us ever since man walked the surface of the earth, as evidenced by ancient biblical texts that exhort the duplicitous to remove the plank from their own eye before they comment on the speck in another's. The plank and speck come pot and kettle analogies seem to be just as germane today as they were some 2,000 years ago. Indeed, the quickening pace of invectives being leveled at those coloring outside the lines of today's woke culture would indicate that the idiom is undergoing an explosive resurgence. As indicated by previous updates, there seems to be no lack of kettles that are being taken to task for their heretical mutterings. These include Doctors Jordan Peterson and Byron Bridle, who are in full-blown battles with their accusers over their right to express their very well-considered opinions in the public square. As for Peterson, his kettle bottom is blackened by hurtful statements he directed at a gender-confused community that would actually promote the surgical mutilation of children. In Bridle's case, his failure to fall on bended knee before the one-size-fits-all vaccine mandate crowd is worthy of his banishment from his own laboratory at the University of Guelph. And now it is time for yours truly, in the form of C3RF publishments, to take their place on the list of blackened kettles. This, as C3RF social media submissions fail to meet mustard with YouTube and Facebook community guidelines. In the case of offending YouTube sensibilities, it would appear that our offering in the form of an in-hot interview with disbarred Quebec lawyer Gloriane Blais was the culprit. It would appear that this submission ran afoul of the social media platform's community guidelines, as it presented medical misinformation that contradicts local health authorities or the World Health Organization's guidance about specific health conditions and substances. The charge was somewhat surprising, as the interview in question simply reported on a legal suit raised by Blais regards the mandating of vaccine during the Wuhan virus pandemic, a factual representation. No problem, though, as YouTube offered C3RF an opportunity to atone for its sins by completing a Jordan Peterson-style policy training program consisting of 7 questions that needed to be answered in a fashion that respected the infallible pronouncements of expert agencies like the World Health Organization. In the case of Facebook rebuffs of C3RF material, the problem was the recent Hearts of Oak video interview with C3RF President and CEO Major Russ Cooper, retired, myself, which discussed the status of civil liberties in Canada. Facebook deemed this offering to be, quote, unacceptable, unquote, and reprimanded a C3RF member for daring to share it on the social media platform. Here again, and like YouTube, we see a big tech powerhouse claiming that only the preferred narratives of its choosing can be circulated and promoted. All others are open to outright censoring and are unceremoniously shown the door. This obvious bias stands in direct opposition to Facebook's mission statement that commits to, quote, giving people the power to build community and bring the world closer together, unquote. In a similar fashion, YouTube seems to be operating in contravention of a mission statement that promises, quote, to give everyone a voice and show them the world, unquote. What's going on? The fact that Facebook has wandered so far from its commitment to provide openness for all is evidenced in a recent sting operation south of the border. These were directed at company executives who, quote, were recorded on hidden camera admitting that Facebook censors pro-Trump posts and disproportionately targets conservatives with fact checks over posts and tech giant claims are misinformation, unquote. These fact checks consistently term pro-Trump material as disinformation, thereby clearing the way for their elimination from the infosphere. Like the C3RF Hearts of Oak interview, the fact that such politicized collusion is not a new thing at Facebook is made clear by the working group that tied Facebook, Twitter, and Google together in 2021 with governments like those from UK and Canada. The purpose of the group was Wuhan virus related and homed in on curtailing, quote, the spread of such mis and disinformation, unquote, as it presented a real and present danger. For its part, YouTube can also be seen to be more than willing to be the tool of prescribed government narratives. The proof is in the pudding when one peels back on the arrangement between the social media giant and the American White House itself. So it was in the same 2021 period when the two colluded to target alleged misinformation relating to the COVID-19 virus and its vaccinations. It is significant and worrisome to note that this overt information campaign was led by former White House strategy Rob Flaherty. He went on to help run the Democratic Party's 2024 presidential re-election campaign. It would appear that when it comes to big tech accusing the likes of C3RF of mis and disinformation, we are dealing with awfully big pots calling very little kettles black. How else to explain their efforts to safeguard regime narratives? American government collusion with Facebook and YouTube, as noted, cannot be considered to be isolated in nature. Former U.S. State Department diplomat and current executive director for a digital freedom enterprise, Michael Benz, sees a long history of such collusion on the American scene. From CIA interference in the Italian elections of 1948 to the present day, he has chronicled a symbiotic relationship between the security apparatus and the media that turned nasty as the focus shifted from foreign to domestic propaganda operations. These operations have taken on a whole-of-society feel as the intelligence state has successfully embedded itself into cultural and media organizations, universities, NGOs, and other publicly visible sectors. As for Canada, we can't help but notice similar relationships developing as the state and its broadcaster coordinate the planting and reporting of intelligence to justify the unconstitutional invocation of the Emergencies Act. When one considers the collusion between Canadian government and its CBC appendage with military exercises dedicated to foisting PSYOP campaigns against the general population and the tracking of over 30 million Canadian cell phones during the Wuhan virus crisis, one is left with a distinct feeling that Canada is well on its way to becoming a surveillance state. Given this development, we can begin to see the current pot calling the kettle black in a different light. Now it can be assessed that the hypocritical and projecting pot, in the form of a woke Canadian regime, is not calling the kettle in the form of non-compliant everyday citizens black because he or she has unacceptable views. Rather than this, it is calling them out for having views that are based on truths and assumptions that the pot will neither countenance or even consider. Cast in this light, the oft-touted polarization that has seized the country over the past several years takes on a new persona that has little to do with left versus right and is more about the divide between ordinary people and, quote, an elite that has gone bananas, unquote. Where once these elites could form a national consensus regarding mass migration, multiculturalism, gender transition of children, and a project of national self-loathing, there is now a refusal of rank-and-file Canadians to go along in timid silence. The pot may declare this new kettle to be far-right, white extremist, or a Christian nationalist, but such invectives fall on deaf ears as the kettle determines that the gig is up. Indeed, it is the pot that is consumed by a zealous attachment to ideologies that don't work in a world ruled by objective reality, a world in which a kettle full of salt and earth Canadians proudly call their home. In closing, a reminder to join us at CanadianCitizens.org, where you can see this update in its full glory, including links to all of the cited documents. Simply go to the News tab at the top of the page and select C3RF Member Updates from its drop-down menu. Until next time, this is Russ Cooper signing off, wishing you and yours much happiness and freedom from C3RF.